Six Flags Over Texas has a lot of good rides. They have several different roller coasters and some great flat rides. And today, I am going to be counting down the top 15 rides at Six Flags Over Texas. Before I start this list, I want to note that I have not experienced a dive bomber alley, as that would have very likely made my top 15. Okay, so kicking off the list of number 15 is Runaway Mine Train. Okay, now this is a good mine train, and it's underrated. The first two thirds, unfortunately, are rather janky, and the elements are just okay. There's no true great elements in the first two thirds of the ride, and it's pretty bumpy too. And there's this awful rattle on the lift hill that will hurt my back, so that is not a good thing. And all you get in the first two thirds is really some laterals, and however, you do get some terrifying head choppers. However, the real reason this ride's on this list at number 15 is the final drop. Yeah, the finale. It takes place in a well-themed saloon, and then the final drop gives a great pop of ejector airtime if you're in the back. And that's especially good with the minimalistic restraint. I also find it cool how you dive underwater. This is overall an underrated coaster that I think deserves more attention. And you also can't forget the setting. Number 14, Pandemonium. Okay, now I think this coaster may actually be a little overrated, as I've seen people put it up higher, like in their, say, top 7 or top 5 even, but I absolutely do not think it's that high. Now, Pandemonium's still a good coaster, though, and I really enjoy this coaster, actually. You get some solid spinning, especially if you get an off-balance car, and if you get an off-balance car, you can spin like a top. The helixes have pretty good positive G-forces. You have a few spots of airtime, and the first drop has some good zip to it. The hairpin turns also have some laterals to it. While there are several mid-course brake ones, none of them hit or slow the train down. And this has always been a joy to experience, and it is a great family coaster, and it is great for what it is. Number 13, Judgey Scream. Some have complained about this thing being rough, but I actually didn't find that issue. In fact, if anything, the roughness enhanced the ride. In terms of the ride itself, it's really fun. It's tucked in the back of the park, so it doesn't usually get a line. I've only ridden this once, like on my first visit. I actually ran it twice, once in the front, once in the back, and it's pretty good. There are some dead spots, but however, there are a few spots of airtime, most notably the second and third hill and the final speed hill, which the latter two caught me off guard. The second hill gives some good ejector for all, the third hill gives some floater airtime for everybody, and the final speed hill gives some good ejector airtime throughout the whole train. You also get some weak floater airtime in the back for the first drop too. And you also get laterals because of the way it banks. While this may be a flawed coaster, is not a bad coaster. I also enjoy the setting over the lake this ride has. Number 12, El Diablo. Okay, this is an underrated ride, period. It has some of the best sustained hang time of any ride. It may not be a roller coaster, but it still has some of the greatest hang time ever devised. Especially when you just stall upside down for a few seconds. That is just some insane hang time. Like, I felt my shoes levitate out of the thing, and I just really liked it. The restraints are really tight, but however, I personally didn't mind that too much, and the hang time was just great. Number 11 is Runaway Mountain. Okay, this is another really good roller coaster. It's really underrated, and while it is small, it is a surprisingly intense for a family coaster. You have several moments of whips. The helixes towards the end pull some great positive G-forces. The first drop has good whip in the back, as does the second drop. And you also get a couple pops of airtime up front in a sense. But however, the real standout moment on this thing is the demonically twisted fourth drop that gives a pop of airtime in the back car, but more notably, it has some intense positive G-forces and also some very strong laterals. And this element is just truly great. I think it may be a bit much for a family coaster, but it will certainly please all thrill seekers. And you have the pitch dark environment, which enhances the ride. Number 10, Texas SkyScreamer. This is the most terrifying ride at Six Flags Over Texas. You go 400 feet into the air in a very exposed riding position attached by chains. When I was there, the chair sort of spun. I'm sure it was due to the wind, but that made it terrifying as it would tilt. I would also feel a huge blast of wind in my face, which was pretty fun. This is for some reason way more terrifying than the Texas Starflyer down in Galveston, but I still think it's a fun experience, and the visuals are downright terrifying, but also exceptional. So number 9 is Aquaman Powerwave. Okay, some people have actually placed this a little higher, but I don't think it's that high, but Aquaman's a really good ride. The 2 spikes offer weightlessness. I'm particularly going to point out the hump at the top, as that one, the hump causes some floater airtime. And the speed hill in the middle also gives some great sustained flagector airtime, particularly after the third launch. The third launch itself is also somewhat punchy, as it's pretty good too. And then the splashdown, while it may not get you as wet as some others, it will get you pretty wet in the front, and it's refreshing on a hot summer day. It's better than most log flumes out there, and it is a brilliant way to get a water ride. I think many Six Flags parks should clone this. Number 8 is the Joker. Okay, some rides on this ride are great, others are just okay. However, let's talk about the great rides. You get a lot of flipping. Sometimes you can even stall on the flips, which results in hang time. And if you end up flipping on the Raven turn, that will be chaotic. The restraints are really tight. But however, the vest restraints thankfully eliminate all headbanging. Some people like to hate on this, but I like it. I really like the Joker. And it personally is a good coaster for me. Yeah, I mean, it feels more like a flat ride, but it's still great either way. So number 7 is the Riddler Revenge. Now this is the second best flat ride at Six Flags Over Texas. The max wings offer good floater airtime along with weightlessness, and the downswings offer great positive G's and a wicked sense of speed. You will feel that wind blasting in your face really freaking hard. And it is just crazy. You are going at 70 miles an hour and you feel it. It may take a long time to reach the max wings, but it's still a great ride. And this ride also has a cool lighting effect at night. Number 6, Superman Tower of Power. Okay, some people like to hate on this thing, but I really like it. For some reason, I notably find the blue and red side to be punchier than the yellow side. The yellow side is still good, I guess, as it offers good oomph on the upwards launch and some decent floater airtime on the drop. However, the blue and red side is why it's really the best flat ride at the park. There, it will leave a pit in your stomach. The upwards launch will leave a pit in your stomach, as it has some great force, and it's pretty punchy too, as it also delivers the floater airtime at the top, and then even while coming back down a little bit. And then the drop delivers good floater airtime at the start. While some people hate on this thing, I find it really fun and also pretty punchy. If you open your eyes, you also get some really terrifying visuals, and it's some of the best in the park that you can get in the park. So number 5 is going to be Shockwave. Okay, some people play Shockwave higher, but I personally still place it here. But Shockwave is still a great ride. The double back-to-back vertical loops are illegally intense. They will cause me to gray out every single time without fail. And they are super intense. They hit 6 Gs, and I believe it. And then you also have 2 drops with some shockingly strong ejector airtime in the back rows that will even cause airtime up front. Then you have some other moments of airtime, like the first drop and the 2 bunny hills after the end. You also have a pop of airtime on the upward ascent and hop into brakes. You do have one dead with the helix, however, all the other elements other than the final helix hit. So number 4 is Batman, the ride. Okay, now some people have to criticize this for being cloned, but I don't mind since it has such an amazing layout. Some people like rave on Montu, but they don't rave on this thing when everybody says this thing is just as intense. Like, the vertical loops will always cause me to gray out with their exceptional positive G's. And the helix is a serious gray out moment for me. However, the best parts of the ride is the 0G roll and corkscrews, as those elements violently whip the train through it, especially on a back edge. On an edge, particularly in back edge. And man, those elements are they're so good. As you get very violently whipped through it. And it's extremely snappy. The first drop also delivers great positive G-forces in the back. It's pretty good too. You also have a pretty snappy churn in between the corkscrews. While this ride is maybe cloned, it is an absolute powerhouse of a ride. Number 3, Titan. Okay, some people like to hate on this coaster, but I personally really like it. It is a intense hypercoaster. You have 2 helixes with some insane gray out inducing positive G's. The first one is the most intense one. It's something that I know Goliath at Magic Mountain lacks. However, not only does Titan have an extra helix, but this extra helix is the most intense one, since you have so much speed to it. I always lose my vision from it. I always have a major gray out here that's sustained for 7 to 8 seconds, and in fact, I come close to blacking out. The downwards helix is also pretty forceful, causing me to gray out every time, even coming somewhat close to blacking out. But beyond that, you have a good first drop, and also a very underrated first drop with some good floater airtime in the back. You also have a hill with very sustained floater airtime, and a turnaround with intense positive G's on the descent. Now, I know everybody likes to criticize the mid-course brake run for slowing you down, but I actually feel like it enhances this one element on the ride. Like, before twist drop, it turns on your side, and if you're in the front, you will get some scary hang time on it. You will, hang there, and it is a really freaky sensation. In the back, you even feel it a little bit going down the drop. However, I still agree that the airtime isn't as good as it could be. It's not filled with airtime like most other hypercoasters are. And there are a few dead spots in this, like the bank turns, twisted drop after the sideways part, and the overbank before the downward helix. And a section of straight track right before the upward helix. But still, Titan is a really good ride. And one last thing to note, if you're in the front, you'll get an insane sense of speed. You'll have that wind just blasting in your face. Number 2, Mr. Freeze. I have not ridden the reverse blast yet, but I've ridden the forwards one, and it's still really good at the forward one, so I imagine the backwards one will be insane. You have an underrated launch, which is somewhat punchy, and you have 3 insane elements. And the overbank is pretty forceful, and the spike has some of the best weightlessness of any coaster since it launches you further up the spike, thanks to those launches, which really messes with your senses. And then you also have a free fall sensation on the way down with it. You also get slammed with positive G's on several moments that can cause me to gray out. But however, the best part is this inverted top hat that's just insane, as you get some good hang time entering the element, like when you're inverted, and then the entry and exit deliver crushing positive G's capable of making you gray out. Now, this is an all-around intense coaster, and I think it's the most intense coaster at the park. But there's one coaster that's better than this, and that coaster is Mini Mine Train. Okay, I'm kidding. It's New Texas Giant. Number 1, New Texas Giant. Now, this is an underrated roller coaster by RMC. It may have been the first creation, but it was a great creation by RMC. The first drop is exceptional as it gives powerful and sustained ejector airtime in the back, and even a little bit of floater airtime up front. And you did have several other airtime moments, like the step up after the first drop, which gives very strong ejector airtime throughout the whole train. The dive drop under the lift hill, which also gives some strong and sustained ejector airtime, especially in the back row. The off excess hill, the finale, and most notably, the speed hail, which gives some incredibly powerful ejector airtime for every single row. Some people like to criticize the free overbanks, but I personally don't mind them, as the first one gives good floater airtime, the second one is extremely snappy, as it gives ejector in the back, but the third one is just okay, I guess, though. However, other than that, the other elements are decent to good and not elite, but however, and this rider starts to fade off in the second half, but it's still good, as you still get good airtime pops. Just not quite as good as it could be or it should be. Anyways, that wraps up my top 15. What do you think your top 15 are? Bye.